leave it on. Let's go. There you go. All right.
Alright, we're on now.
How's that? So what does that tell us now? So are we live now?
Now you gotta,
Live now.
Live now, okay. Okay, well, hey, I told you welcome a while ago when we weren't live, so, out there in internet land. So, anyway, we're live now, and we're glad you're with us. Our topic here tonight is freedom to choose, step 3. Deuteronomy 30, 15 through 20. Tommy's going to be teaching that for us tonight. He'll be doing that. And then Will Cook will be doing, oh, I'm not supposed to say your last name, am I? We'll see. You don't care.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see? Okay, we'll see. We'll be doing the reflection and the questions. So that's what we're going to be doing. So are you ready to go? All right. Welcome to everybody here. And of course, Tiffany. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes, okay. I was, had to pause there for a second. You know, it's all in there, but sometimes it takes a while to get it out, and sometimes it takes a long time to get it out. But anyway, glad you're here, Tiffany. Tiffany, this is her first time, so try to be nice to her, okay? Shouldn't have any problem with that. So anyway, tonight, we're going to step 3. We made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God. Good step. Would you agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
As I was working on this morning and up into the afternoon, the one statement of to turn over to the care of God, to the care of God, I circled that because it kind of jumped out at me a little more. Hi, Robert. Come on in.
howdy.
So, what do you think that means? The care of God. Hey, Garth.
Say the question again.
Question is, what do you think that means?
Well, I was thinking like before, I took care of my own
Good.
self.
Mm-hmm. At least you thought you did.
Yeah, I thought I had it all under control. So giving it over to God to direct me.
Uh-huh. What do you think about that, Tommy?
I think it's a big step. Coming from thinking I could take care of everything myself to allowing something higher than me and more powerful than me to come into my life.
Takes a big load off of your shoulders, so.
It could, but crossing that bridge from taking care of our being, doing it's all self-will and coming to the place that we give our will over or we surrender to God is quite a process.
Yes, it is, but when you've been dependent upon people and others, like I have for all my life,
Yes.
it is easier for me to hand everything over to God than to think I can control it myself and take care of it on my own.
Yeah. That's good. That's a good statement, John. I appreciate that. Is there anything else you want to say about that?
No. Not right now, anyway.
Okay. So you flinched back here, Tommy. Did you have something you wanted to say?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Well, if Garth was here, he would say something.
No, I wouldn't.
Okay, so what does that mean? The care, that we're giving over our will and our life over to the care of God.
We are submitting ourselves and being humble to give Him control of our lives.
Okay. Anybody else? You looked at me. Did you have a thought? I'm talking about you, Willie.
Not right at this moment.
Oh, okay. All right, well, if you get a thought, we want to catch it.
Yeah. One in a million.
Tina, you had your hand up. Did you want to say something? You hardly ever say anything.
Not me?
Yeah,
No,
okay.
I'm gonna say.
All right. So, I just thought that would be interesting for us to talk a little bit about, because, you know, are you trying to care for yourself? I mean, are you carrying all that care? Or have you cast your care over on Him? You know, and so, and whichever one you're doing, how's that working out for you?
Yeah.
Yes, Tommy?
I like to think more that I grow in knowing God, the more I understand the care that He has for me.
That's good.
And He does for me.
And how does that happen?
Submission, obedience,
But that's your part.
learning.
Well, you said that you're able to rely more on His care. How does that
I
happen?
learn about God.
Learning.
About the Bible and more.
Is there anything other than learning about Him in the Bible?
Staying sober.
Staying sober, that's good. Yeah, that's good. Anything else? Learning about Him, learning the Bible, staying sober.
No, I can't really. I can think of some more stuff, but
Robert's just chomping at the bit to say something. So.
How can you tell?
Well, you had that intensification on you.
Well, I think throughout the Bible it says God is love.
Yeah?
And usually when we're in the throes of our addiction, we don't have love for ourselves because we do things to hurt ourselves. So it's nice to know that someone still loves us, even though maybe everybody around us we feel doesn't love us. It's just a relief, at least it was for me, to just say, okay, God, I did a poor job of taking care of myself. I think I'm going to let you take care of me.
All right. And the one thing that I could add on to those things, Garth,
Matt?
you may. Please.
When I do not rely on God to help care for me, there's things that I feel like, okay, this is what I need, this is what I want, this is what I'm doing, and not everything unfolds as I want it to. And when it doesn't, sometimes it makes me anxious or upset or why. Whereas when I place my care in the hands of God, I know there's a reason, even though I don't know it now.
Yes.
I have that faith and that trust
Good.
that there is a reason, and
Good.
so it helps calm me.
Yes.
And just be accepting, continue moving forward the best I can, because it will come when it's supposed to.
Good. Good.
I have to keep reminding me of God's perfect timing,
Yes.
that
Timing.
I need to wait on Him instead of getting my cart for His thoroughbred horses, because that doesn't work too well.
Mm.
My cart gets completely ran over.
Mm. Not just your cart.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, and what I was thinking about sharing in that was that our experiences in both arenas, how it seemed to be, like Robert was saying, my care for me seemed to be so inadequate, and then trusting in His care. We have experiences that we can point to say, it didn't come through maybe in my timing, but it came through. It happened. I had those divine experiences or moments that if it wouldn't happen, I don't know where I would be. And those experiences is what I'm saying. And if we're not careful, we miss those. We forget those. Does that make sense?
Especially if we have blinders on.
Yeah. Yeah. You kind of stirred up some thoughts, Garth, when you were talking there. But I want to go ahead and see if I can communicate them. And that was that we all know intuitively what with our heart, with our soul, with our mind, with our spirit. We know what we should and shouldn't do. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
We know that. And we know when we're, we really do. This is my theory. You can correct me here. Yeah, you have permission to correct me here in this one topic. And so, I just told that in there. That because we know what's right and wrong, and we really know that, even though sometimes we choose to override it because we think that's where we come into that self-will thing. We think I really want to go ahead and move out of what I know is within the alignment, go out of alignment to try to get what I want, because I'm thinking it's really up to me. And that's part of what we talked about last week about we come in as an infant, we're totally dependent, and we have to grow from dependency to grow into independency, so we become self-reliant. But the job's not done there, because then we have to move from being dependent to independent to interdependent with God and rely on Him. And that's a really big shift. All of it, all three of those are big. But if we don't do it, then we're always pushing ourselves out of alignment. Would you agree with that statement?
It's a tremendous balancing of being independent while relying on the help of.
Right. Well, as Apostle Paul, when he was in his experience in Asia, when he thought he was going to die, he couldn't figure it out. He didn't have enough pull. He didn't have enough power. He didn't have enough of knowledge to shift that situation, and he found himself in a place that he was extremely vulnerable, and he thought he was going to die. And some theologians even said that he even thought about suicide. Now, I don't know, I've not seen that, but that's what some have said, which, if you're in a grave enough situation, I understand how that could come up. But what he finally did was he had to come to the place where he had to totally rely on God. Not his skills and talents and mental aptitude, or spiritual aptitude. He had to rely on God. But God wanted him to rely on Him so that he could use all of his talents in his work. And that's the reason why I think he wrote most of the New Testament. So that totally reliance. But my point here is, and this is one of my reasons why I hesitated, because there's a lot of nuance in this. If we were to really stop and think, where is that proper alignment? And am I in it? And when I'm not in it, then am I pushing myself out of that alignment? And how does that affect my life? How does it affect your life? Any comments?
Sure, it can be broke, high, and in trouble.
And if we can come into that alignment with Him, even if our desire, our preferences, our willingness is lined up in that and trying to be in that, even if our behavior may not hit all that target all the time, but because our heart's right, we will then drag the rest of us into it. What do you think about that? And that's the reason why I say recovery is a process. Okay? It's not just, when I don't say it like that, it is a process. And a prayer is a good part of that beginning process, but it's to help us to begin to let go of those things that we don't want to let go of, but we know we need to let go of them, but we don't want to let go of them, but I need to let go of this because it's taking me to places that I don't want to go. Well, there's part of me that don't want to go there. There's part of me that doesn't want to go to me. I don't, but I'm resisting that part that wants to go there, right? You know what I'm talking, we know what we're talking about, right? And the longer I'm away from that, the less pull it has on us mentally and emotionally. Would you agree with that statement?
Yes.
And, but let's not fool ourselves that, that dead part of us that we're trying to, as Apostle Paul says, mortify, it can come back alive so quick if we're not careful. And one of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons is because we've fallen out of that alignment. What do you think about that so far?
Yep.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So much for that. Okay. All right, let's talk about our topic tonight. Free choice, which lines up with all what I just was talking about in one way or another. Because free choice has so many connections. So what does free choice mean?
But you have a decision.
Excuse me?
If you have a decision.
You have a decision. It's your decision.
And you can accept it whether it's great or whether it's horrible for you.
It's your decision. And and whatever you do, it's a decision. Whether you engage or disengage, it's a decision. So God has given us right to have that free choice. Would you agree with that? Anybody else?
How many decisions we make today is a question I have. Because it seems like, what am I going to eat? Where am I going to walk? It just seems like everything is the day's full of decisions.
I know that answer, and I'm trying to pull it up. According to neuroscience, but they talked about thoughts. That was not decisions. But I can't remember, it was somewhere in the range of 50,000, 60,000. I don't remember, it's been a long time since I've been in that data. So there's a lot of thoughts. But one of the problems of thoughts is we can, it could be a positive or a negative. We think a lot of the same thoughts over and over. Right? So, decisions. Oh man, there's tons of decisions. And we make conscious decisions and we make unconscious decisions, which some people call subconscious. And the subconscious ones, actually, that part of our life runs 90% of our life. The unconscious or subconscious. And actually we only are actively making choices 10% of the time. Now, that's good if your thought process is renewed to be better alignment that we were talking about a while ago. And that 90%, not all of it's bad, but some of it could be very destructive. Would you agree with that statement?
Yes.
And so those are the ones, remember I don't know, it's been a while since we've talked about this, about catch it, check it, change it method, and we need to always be looking at our thoughts, our beliefs, and we need to evaluate them. But to evaluate them, you need to catch them, and then check it, evaluate it, and then if they need to be changed, work on changing them, lining them up with the truth. Okay? So, does anybody else have any comment they want to make on what does free choice mean? Anybody? You ready for me to read the definition? Okay, or have we talked about it enough where you feel good enough with it?
And I guess there has to be a response or, I hate to say a repercussion. I guess there has to be in order to make a decision. Otherwise, making the decision is moot,
Well, and you want me to respond to that?
Any way you want.
Okay. Well, according to my study in quantum physics and something they call superposition, are you familiar with what I'm talking about? What that is basically you have all these choices that you can make in this one particular item, and at this superposition, you have the opportunity to make any of those. Some of them from the very extreme of negative and the extreme of positive, okay? And you get to choose. Follow me so far?
I am.
And when you choose, that you make that choice, either consciously or unconsciously, then all of the choices collapse into the choice that you make. And that affects your reality. So all that was to say, yes, your choice affects your reality. Does that make sense? And we have that. Yes.
I think sometimes we need to remember too that many times our choice affects other people's reality.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I've said this before, but you can be in a room, in a waiting room, and people can walk in that's extremely angry. Their attitude and behavior, which are choices, would you agree with that? Affects. It can affect, but humanly speaking, it has the opportunity, it affects everybody in there. Now, they either choose, they're willingly are influenced by that, because they are affected because it collides with their atmosphere, and they can choose to either ride that chaos or choose not to, right? Yes.
And I'd like to hook some people up to like heart monitors or something, and then have somebody come in and do that, and I bet it goes up or something, and then some can bring it back, and so
Well, there are meetings that have some of those things going on, and by the activity in the room, it does affect the entire room, even though they're not cognitively aware of what's going on.
So you can bring a positive energy into an environment.
Yes, you can. And that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to make the world better. What do you think about that? Are we not supposed to make the world better?
Yes, they are.
I think so.
Okay, all right. So let me read this, okay? Unless you have another question, Garth.
Oh, no.
Free to choose generally refers to the ability to make choices without coercion. Whether it's in your personal life, in economics, faith, or morality. The phrase became well known through economics. Economists, Milton Friedman. Anybody ever heard of Milton Friedman? Yes. His book and TV series, which I wasn't aware of the TV series, so I may look that up, which advocated for free markets and individual responsibilities. Okay, because that's what free choice is about. Taking our personal responsibility and know that our decision affects our outcome, positively or negatively, correct? However, in a broad sense, it aligns with biblical and psychological principles about human agency. You know what human agency is? Taking charge of your life, being your own agent, so to speak. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Human agency. In other words, taking responsibility, control, direction.
Or CIA agent.
Yeah, undercover. From a biblical perspective, free to choose reflects the God-given gift of free will. God has given us a gift of free will. I think our free will is actually, now this is my personal opinion, which I've never heard anybody say it like this, so I could be really wrong, but I don't think so, or I wouldn't say it, okay? And that is, this free will is really part of what God has given us, which is faith, which can move things in a positive way or in a negative way, depending on which direction you're faithing. How about that? Does that make sense? Robert, you're looking at me strange.
What word are you using again? Fate?
Faith.
Faith? F-A-I-T-H, okay. I thought you said fate first, F-A-T-E.
Okay?
I'm not
I
a
said,
big believer in fate.
I was talking about faith, that was my terminology. And I apologize for slurring my words.
Well, I'm hard of hearing, so.
Okay, well, I'll just take responsibility because see, isn't that the thing we're supposed to do?
Yeah.
You know, I will work on that statement. I don't say fate very much, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
But
It was the fading one that
I remember.
faithing was, yeah, that's a little different word, but you know, our operation of faith. How about that? You like that one better?
I followed it, I just wasn't sure if it's, you know, if we're French travel, I might call it.
Okay, well, I'll ask my wife, she's really good at that Scrabble stuff. She's probably listening right now, and she'll either correct me or, well, she'll remember if she's gonna correct me. Bam, right? So, all right, here we go. Where am I at? Okay, here we are. From the biblical perspective, free will to choose reflects, I already read this part of the sentence, but I'll go ahead and finish it. Reflects the God-given gift of free will. In Deuteronomy 30:19, God set before his people, and this is God speaking to his people, and by the way, Moses here is the one that's writing Deuteronomy, and this is some of his final speech before they went in and possessed the land, and Moses dies. Okay, so just kind of gives you an idea kind of where things are. Moses sets before the people life and death, blessing and cursing, which is what we're talking about here, about making choices. You can choose life, you can choose death, you can choose blessing, you can choose cursing. And he says that multiple times in the passage of scriptures that we'll be going over in here in a little bit. And urges them to choose life. He says you can choose life, you can choose death, blessings or cursings, but I say to you, choose life. Okay? You don't have to. Now, some people believe that God curses people. But when you look in Genesis, that's not what it talks about, that the curse came on us because of sin entering the world, because there was no curse before then. Now, that can be a very controversial statement that I've just made, but that's how I see what the scriptures say, or said. And so that, how do we get cursed then? Well, by not choosing to be in alignment with his truth, right? We don't have to line up with him, but if we don't, then we're out on our own facing the monsters by ourselves. Does that make sense? Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Are we mostly in agreement with what I said? Okay. I don't have to be right, but I wouldn't say it if I didn't think I was. But I've been wrong before.
And that's when you thought you were wrong.
Well, no, I thought I was right until I found out I was wrong. But, you know, I've been at it for a long time. Of course, a lot of things I thought was right sometimes were things I was taught that was wrong. But when you go to digging and not just taking people's word for it, and that's the reason why we give you scripture and scripture reference that you can look and see, and you don't have to take anybody's word for it. You can look it up in multiple references, and you can go to the original if you wish or whatever. Okay, so freedom to choose. This emphasizes personal responsibility in deciding, and by the way, I have a sheet back here where the offering basket is that has all this that I'm reading right now. So if you want to read it, it's back there. Half of them are in color and half of them are in black and white because I ran out of yellow ink while I was printing them this afternoon. So first come, get the color. Second come, get the black and white. So that's the way it is. So,
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're removing our choice.
No, fate did because I ran out of.
the choice is yours, get there now.
If they're still there. They're right there on that table. So they emphasize personal responsibility in decision-making and aligning choices with God's will. So that it's alignment with God. From the psychological standpoint, the ability to choose is essential for personal growth. Now this is psychological, okay? Which is, God's the greatest psychologist I know, by the way. He knew it all before we ever did, right? So he says personal growth, autonomy, and mental well-being. Viktor Frankl, which is one of my favorites, A Man's Search for Meaning, which is his most popular book, highlights that even in suffering, people retain the ability to retain the ability to choose their response, reinforcing the power of free will in shaping one's life. He was very adamant when he was in the Nazi death camp that he said that he was freer than his captors because he knew he had the ultimate choice. He had his will to choose, and he affected I believe he affected his life because he didn't. He maintained that, and he directed his life by his healthy choices. In fact, I remember one of the stories he said in there, and that came to me when I was talking, was that they were loading up half of the barracks and was going to take them somewhere, and the word was that it was a much nicer barracks. It was a great place, and they asked him if he wanted to go, and best is what I remember, and he said no, he was going to stay here and stay with the people because he was actually helping them. He was a doctor and he was trying to help them, and he was trying to care for the prisoners. So he said, no, I'm just going to stay here. They found out later they just took that truckload of prisoners out and shot them. So I just, it's one of those stories that kind of stick with you.
Ended up in a better place.
They did end up in a better place. But,
I'm just saying.
we wouldn't have known his book if he'd have taken that book truck ride. I know.
And in his mind, if he'd been really upset with where he was at, of course he's gonna leave because it can't be worse than here.
Yeah.
And arguably it was.
Yeah, and that's one of the facts of life, isn't it? So, and I put down here, so what do you think that means?
Wow, it gets so quiet when you ask questions like that.
Yeah, I know. Yes.
Means that throughout life, we have choices to make. We have to recognize that we have to accept the results of those choices. But if those results aren't turning out the way we want to, there might still be an opportunity to change our direction from a choice later on down the line. We just have to always be aware that the best way is, like you're saying, is to align ourselves with God.
And one of the things I didn't say, and that was very good, Robert, one of the things I didn't say earlier was sometimes when we're in disalignment and we know we're in disalignment, oftentimes we'll end up sabotaging our life to try to, there's a part of us, our subconscious, that will kind of punish us or sabotage us to try to get us to pay attention to where we need to be. Would you agree with that statement? Yes, John.
As the choice that he made, some of those choices lead to life or death.
Right?
And we never know which path. If we go a certain way, we never know why we turn where we turn. But in turning where we turn, we may be avoiding an accident which would end up in our death.
That's right.
And I believe that God steers us down the path if we are open to cognitively connect to that path.
I agree with everything you said except for one thing, which would be a common thing, that if we some choices lead to death or life. Some choices, all choices lead to life
But
or
I'm
death.
saying, instantly, I mean, if he chose to go to
Right.
the good camp, he would have,
Well, at least that's what we think.
yeah.
You know. So, I was thinking about when you was talking about there, Steve Bakos, which you may not know him, is a friend of mine, has been working in Nicaragua for 20-some years, and I'd go down every couple of 3 years or so, and, well, I guess it wasn't that often. It was 4 times in 20 years, so that's closer to the so. And he went over to buy a motor over in Honduras, and they arrested him. And the soldiers had him get in the truck, and the procedure is usually they take you out into the jungle and shoot you. And God arranged certain situations to occur because they had a leak. The radiator and the engine would heat up and it'd stop, and anyway, he fixed it for him. And so just different things happened. They switched trucks, and somebody was hauling meat in the back of this truck, wasn't refrigerated, and they said, "You're riding back here with this meat," which was, there was nothing between the meat and the air. So he was, got blood on him and stuff, and that was in the middle of the night. But through this process of time, by not sabotaging himself, my words, not his, not giving up, but open for the possibility of good things happening, and that's what everyone has to do, right? But it looked like it's going to turn out good. But somehow he ended up in a high-ranking officer when they did go ahead for some reason, get him all the way back to their military base. And they called him in, which was unusual, the high-ranking officer, and talked to him. And there happened to be an order from the government, his government, that morning about the way you should be treating visitors. Okay? About the treatment of visitors, that they needed to treat visitors appropriately, or their heads were going to roll. Okay? That was kind of what it was about. And so he got after, because he got the main man got that report right before Steve went in. I don't know how, but I think it was that morning. And he got treated very well and even assisted on getting what he needed, at best I remember, and helping him to get back across to where he wanted to go. And that was, so it was a miracle. And all that happened. And somebody heard that story and came, like the next day, over to where he was in Nicaragua, which was right on the Rio Coco River, and got saved because of all that went on. So anyway, it's a big, long story, and I know I didn't tell all of it correctly, but it's close enough. So let's go forward. All right. What's the connection between step 3 and freedom of choice? We made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God.
Well, we have a free will to not choose to turn our will over.
We do. It's good. And we have free will to choose to turn our will over, right?
Right.
It's a decision.
It's our decision. You get to choose. And oftentimes we'll even make that decision before we even know what we're doing. Right? So there are, at the core, step 3 is about making a conscious choice to surrender our life to God. This aligns directly with the principle of free to choose, found in Deuteronomy 30, 15 through 20, which is our scriptures, which God presents the choice between life and death, blessing and cursing. That's basically the connection there. I'm going to try to abbreviate here. There are three steps in here. One is the freedom to choose to surrender. Okay, sometimes people feel like it's giving up, surrendering. No, it's choosing to shift our alliance, and shifting our alliance or getting aligned with God it's not giving up. It's a different kind of fight. Would you agree with that? Number 2 was recognizing the consequences of our choices. We kind of already talked about that. We get positive consequences and we get negative consequences. But there are consequences to every choice. Would you agree with that? Okay. And if we, let me read it. Deuteronomy warns that rejecting God's leading is destruction. In recovery, clinging to self-will often leads to addiction. Read that again. In recovery, clinging to self-will often leads to addiction, dysfunction, and pain. You guys agree or disagree with that statement? Everybody agree?
Yeah.
Everybody disagree? The rest of you, you're not sure yet. Step 3, the next one is choosing fear over faith. Many struggle with step 3 because surrender feels like losing control. Anybody relate with that statement? Okay. But just as God calls His people to choose life, He tells us what to do, and then He actually cheats on this test of life here by telling us what the answer is. You don't have to do it, but here you go. I remember in high school, I was dating my wife in high school, and we didn't have the same class. I don't know what class it was, but we had the same class, but we didn't have it the same hour. She had it in the morning, I had it in the afternoon. And for some reason, because she thought maybe I needed some help, I guess, on the test. So she'd give me the answers to the questions. And I wouldn't use them, but a friend of mine behind me, which was a friend of Linda's too, she knew that she gave me the answers, and he wanted the answers. So I gave them to him, and he says, well, I don't take all of her answers, I only take some of them. And the bottom line is, I did better on the test than he did.
So it's part of your wife?
Yeah, I was gonna say, is that ipso facto?
Maybe, I don't know. I didn't pay any attention. I mean, it was just, question number one. He was multiple choice, A, B, and C, and he had all the different questions. And so, anyway, I always thought that was kind of funny. And, but he relied on that. Okay, so. All right, choosing faith over fear. We haven't talked about that yet, right? Many struggle. Yeah, we did, didn't we? Yeah, losing control. All right. Life applications, and then I'm going to stop. I know I went a little long. I hope you guys don't mind, but the band's not here, so. But I have some life application questions, and this is the fun part. Are you ready? That means this is questions for you guys to answer. What has your self-will protected in your life?
Produce.
What?
Oh, sorry, produce. What does your self-will produce? The one thing about when you put out the sheet that you're reading off of, then, you know, everybody knows what you're saying. So what has your self-will produced in my life? In your life?
Destruction.
That was the first word that came to my mind.
Disruption, okay. Okay,
Pride.
good.
More problems.
More problems, okay. So who wants to read the second question since I messed up the first one? What fears keep me from fully turning my life over to God?
Pride.
Pride? Was that you again? Every answer is pride? Well, it could
It's a
be.
big thing in my life.
It says something, I was wondering what it says. So, anybody else?
Then I'll have to change.
Say it again.
Then I will have to change.
Fear of losing control.
Good, good.
I had something, would you mind reading that again?
Sure. What fears keep me from fully turning my life over to God?
The fear that I'm gonna be losing something. I guess that game, I want to, that game, which is foolish, but,
Well, one thing about questions, it reveals some of those thoughts that are hidden down deep. And then we have to look at them and say, is that a rational or irrational belief? And if it's irrational, then that means it's probably based on a lie, and it's not constructive to try to live our life on a lie. Would you agree with that?
absolutely, I mean, that's almost the basis for me for the addiction.
Good. Any other comments on that question? Question number 3. How can I practice step 3 daily? That's the beginning of the question. Do I?
Pride is not the answer though, man.
Well, we've only got half of the question here. I just wanted to emphasize that half of the question. By making choices that align with God's will. So, how can I practice step 3 daily? By making choices that align with God's will.
Humble myself.
Anybody else? Christy, you haven't said a word here, I was just giving you a chance.
The quiet ones are scary. Because they're thinking.
Yes, Robert.
I think we have to kind of learn what God's will is if we don't know.
Yes.
But God's will is for us to be happy and to help others and to be a blessing to those around us. I don't believe that God has any will for us that's bad. So just like the choices that Moses was outlining to the Israelites, you can choose this, you can choose that, but God wants you to do this. It's going to be to your blessing, it's going to be to your life. So that's what we have to believe when we're facing choices. We have to think about, is this going to be a benefit to me or a detriment to me?
That's right. And I was thinking about some of our discussion here while you were going through that, if we ask the question, well, is God out to hurt you or take anything away from you, to harm you? And He is life. He's there to give us life and life more abundantly, right? And so that's not His plan. And I thought of another story, but I'm not gonna go into that story. Maybe I'll save it for later. So, but I want to read a couple of quotes here, or this is a question to start off with. Does your daily behavior match your deepest belief?
No.
Okay, just something for you to ponder, right? Do I need to read it again? This is on the bottom of that sheet, by the way. No? Okay, I'll go to the next one. Robin Sharma said this. He said, now this is kind of a very interesting quote. He says, the comfort of growing,
Discomfort.
yes, you're right. The discomfort of growing is always so much more valuable than the illusion of safety.
Or illusion of comfort.
Excuse me?
Or illusion of comfort.
Well, yes. Could do that, comfort, yeah, illusion of comfort. So what does that mean?
You grow more when you're discomfortable than when you do when you're comfortable.
Well,
It
because all growth is painful, right? So,
stretches your possibilities.
yeah. And oftentimes our mechanism of survival is avoid pain, seek pleasure. So discomfort is not pleasure. And so, but the fact of it is, to actually grow and mature and develop and to obtain that we'd like to obtain, it usually involves some discomfort. And just having comfort could be, as he put down here, a illusion for safety.
Did I even say all growth?
All growth is painful.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Okay?
Oh, I have to explain. I mean, it's because, okay, let's say change and I grow, I learn, wow, I didn't know I could do that.
Yeah, that's true. But how did change feel to you?
Well, but I think I have.
The well is a pretty big statement there.
Because some change, I just know it's gonna be good and I'm excited and it is good, so.
Yeah, well. But when you grow, all growth, all healing, you've had wounds that are healing, right? And it's good that they heal. But normally it affects you and you have pain because of it. Unless you're up on pain pills. We'll leave it said right there.
I'll take it under advice.
Do I?
I'll take it under advice.
Well, again, I don't have to be right. It's just, it's where I see at the moment. So, any questions, comments? Ready to drive forward? John's going to come up and read the steps, is that right? So come on down, John, and thanks everybody for putting up with me, all right?
Step one, we admitted that we were powerless over our problems and that our lives became unmanageable. Step two, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Step three, this is where we're at tonight. We made a decision to turn our wills and our lives over to the care of God. Step four, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Step five, we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Step six, we were entirely ready to have God remove these defects of character. Step seven, we humbly asked God to remove our shortcomings. Step eight, we made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Step nine, we made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Step 10, we continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Step 11, we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry it out. Step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to others and practice these principles in all of our affairs. Back to step 3 where we are tonight. We made a decision to turn our wills and our lives over to the care of God. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Tom.
Hi. Everybody on the internet land, how are you guys?
Good.
Free to choose. Let Doug get caught up with us here.
I'm ready.
Alright. We made a decision to turn our wills and our lives over to the care of God. Everyone has a life or death decision to make.
What do you think this means?
Well, we could remain in our addiction and the filth of our life that's bad and the corruption of our daily stuff, or we could turn it over to the care of God.
Okay. Any comments from anybody? Why don't you read that again?
Everyone has a life or death decision to make.
Any comments? What does that mean? Robert?
We probably have several life and death decisions to make. But in terms of recovery, even then we have several to make because most of us relapse. We don't get it right the first time. And some of us are so hard-headed that it takes years and years and years and years before we finally make the correct decision.
And may I add on that, there's a part of me that says because of being strong-willed, you said hard-headed, but I'm saying strong-willed, there's a plus and negative side to that being strong-willed, because if we wouldn't have been strong-willed, it'd probably already been dead. So because of being stubborn, hard-willed, strong-willed, whatever you want to call it, you're still
Still kicking.
You're still there. You're still here. You're still in the fight.
Yeah.
And you're still trying to stop.
Yeah, well, maybe, yes, could be. Well, the fact of it is, that's going to be a part of our life because we've opened the door that I think we all can agree that we shouldn't have opened, right?
Yeah.
And so, do what?
Was that a choice?
Yeah, it was a choice.
Definitely a choice.
It was.
Could have been.
And so, and we made that choice over and over and over and over and over, and that maybe that compound the results in our life, and God can come in and help us with that. But with every choice, there are still consequences to those choices. But God will even help us with those if we let Him. If we do that surrender deal we was talking about. Go ahead, Willie. Tommy.
All right. We have all been created with the supreme privilege of free will, the ability to choose. Even when we are in the bondage of our addictions, we still have choices confronting us.
So what do you think that means?
That we have choices of getting up and using and being stuck in our addiction, or we have a choice to maybe take a step out of it and learn how to recover.
But what about this bondage of addiction, of our addiction?
Well, because it's my addiction. And I'm the one that's stuck in it, and I'm the one that makes the choice to stay there.
Or not stay there?
Or not stay there, yes.
You stopped at the period before this. Was there something you thought needed to be said?
No, I was just seeing if you had something that...
Okay. All right. Just check.
I just checked. That's what I was doing.
That's all right. Free will and the ability to choose, right? So
Yes.
I think I don't know that there's anything else there. So go ahead.
Having choice to rest.
Third.
When we are in recovery, we face the nagging lure of falling back into our addictions.
So what do you think this means?
That
let me read that again.
Okay,
When we are in recovery, we face the nagging lure of falling back into our addictions. Well, it could be from outside circumstances, like I see people like smoking and I think, man, I'd sure like to have a cigarette, and that thought crosses my mind a lot. You know, there's a nagging, it's a nagging presence in my life, you know,
and what will we call that tonight? It's our topic,
free to choose.
okay? So when it comes up and it goes to nagging at you, then that is an opportunity to,
I choose not to.
okay? And do you have evidence to back up your choice?
Well, yes, because I'm not doing it.
Okay, is that the only thing?
No,
There's reasons, right?
yes, there's reasons I have willpower now that I didn't have before.
Okay, but what's the reasons not to fall into,
My health, my financial, it smells bad.
okay,
It just doesn't do good for my health, and it doesn't look good that, you know, be smoking, you know, for me. I don't feel that it's the right choice.
all right. Okay, anybody have any comments on that? Go ahead.
And keep reading?
Yes.
Okay. The freedom to choose brings with it the burden of our consequences of our choices.
Okay, so help me understand what that means, what this means.
Help me.
Help me, because I want to know.
I do too.
Well, let's read
The
let's
freedom-
read that sentence
The
again.
freedom.
Maybe we'll have to call a friend or something.
Yeah, I need a lifeline on this one. The freedom to choose brings with it the burden of the consequences of our choices. That will.
Okay, what I get out of that is, that when I was in my addiction, I didn't see it. It was almost like I was living in darkness. And the minute I brought in any kind of a light, I could see the consequences. So living with consequences means that I not only acknowledged them, but I felt the repercussions of them, instead of before when I would just go blindly into any situation and just wish for the best. I couldn't see past right now. How's that?
That's a pretty big statement there.
It's true.
That's good. Read the thing again. We're gonna call out for a friend here.
The freedom to choose brings with it the burden of the consequences of our choices. Robert?
I think that the burden of consequences usually are if we make the wrong choice. The right choices don't usually bring, they bring consequences, but they're usually helpful consequences if we make right choices. But in addiction, the wrong choices, even months, years later, you can suffer the consequences. And it might be legal, it can be financial, it can be health-wise, it can be relationships. All of those things can stem from the choice we made to be involved in our addiction.
Yeah, and we're not saying that this stuff is easy, right?
No.
It's complex, and we got all this swirling stuff up here, right? And that swirling to me means chaos. How about you? And for things, we want peace. So to get peace, we have to start dealing with this swirling chaos here, and bringing things in our life that can help align us and put us, into a better position. Maybe that so we're not faced with making some of those decisions because we're not confronted with those choices, right? That's where that will comes in, where we pre-choose before we get to the spot. So I like what you had to say there, and but the fact here is there is a burden to bear for unhealthy choices, consequences, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right, let's go forward.
This is a tough one. These choices affect our life and the lives of our children. Free will.
Wait, what is that? Do you agree with that statement?
Yes, I do, because I have been out of my child's life for a long time because of my choices years and years ago. And even though I've had change in my life, I haven't been able to see my child still, and that bothers me.
I was thinking about that when
Yeah.
I debated on asking that question.
I debated on just saying I don't have nothing to say. I was debated on skip.
And you always can, right? You can
Yeah.
pass. And so,
Made a healthy choice to answer.
Yes, I felt like it felt better to choose to say what I had actually felt about it, because I had addiction to anger back then, and that's almost worse than a drug. And chaos and being right and being mad at everybody, because it was just, I felt like it was better than to be right and be angry than it was to just get along with people.
And sometimes anger helps control,
Yeah.
others.
Is that the difference between pride and humility?
Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
And if I may, in this moment of pause, comment, he talked about something about the decision is, and I noticed that a lot around folks that were in an addiction, that, that they would like steal, and you think, well, that person was helping you. And in being still, you're going to get more in the long run. But oftentimes decisions are very short term, and they can't see past that.
Yeah. For years, all I did was blame everybody else, and it was all them. It was all because something in their ways that stopped it, And now I realize today that maybe I did have my part, and I definitely had my part.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's big.
Yes.
And it takes humility to say that.
Yeah.
Go ahead with the next sentence.
Free will is our blessing and our responsibility.
What does that mean?
Well, it was a gift that He gave to us. God gave us the gift to be able to have free will. He could have not given it to us.
So how is free will is our blessing and our responsibility? How's free will a responsibility?
Well, that's kind of scary because sometimes our free will can lead us down the wrong path, so it makes me wonder why it's a blessing when we're going the wrong way. It's not really a blessing.
Well,
I think the responsibility part is that we gotta make the right choice.
You gotta make the right
The
choice.
consequences of
Yeah.
part of your free will. But the free will is a blessing because we get to choose.
Yes.
right? Yeah.
But our decisions affect others as
Right.
So like I said earlier.
That is true. It affect us and affect others. So, Will, are you saying then that this free will, there's something in free will, that yes, it's our blessing, but it's our responsibility. It's how we use that free will. Is that what you're trying to say?
I'm saying that's my favorite line of this whole scripture right here. Yes, it is a blessing, but as an addict, I like to blame others like Tommy was saying. But as recovering, as I recover, what I see is it's always been about the way I view things. I can always view something as somebody else's fault, my fault, whatever, but the accountability that I take upon myself allows me to take the responsibility of making a better choice next time. But if I'm blaming you, it's not a blessing no more, it's a curse because it's the way I view it. I view it as free will, and I had a choice, I have to take accountability for it. But if I'm not using it as a blessing I'm not seeing it as free will, but as somebody else is enforcing their will on me, and all of a sudden I've got all the excuses in the world to do whatever I want.
You stirred up a thought there about free will, that, you know, we can do the blame game and blame everybody, which is basically putting people down. Would you agree with that statement?
A lot of times,
Excuse me?
a lot of times.
I'm thinking of when a time it wouldn't, but there could be.
I'm alone, they don't know.
You're on, but you're still putting them down. So, and if you believe in entanglement, they're being affected. So, but we are, and so not blaming by choosing to be responsible or taking responsibility, even if it's a misunderstanding. Like, I think maybe I've even modeled that here tonight, that even I'll take responsibility of a misunderstanding, even though I'm not necessarily wrong, but I'd rather not put anybody else down, you know, and so just a way of looking at it. Robert?
One thing that I think is really important in recovery is that it has to be our own choice.
Absolutely.
Because I went through a time where I was trying to stop gambling because my wife wanted me to, or because my friends or people I knew it was bad for me and they told me I needed to stop. Well, that just made me want to do it more, you know, because I have free will, I can do what I want to.
And that caused a reaction, which was a negative reaction.
But until I, like step one, we admitted we're powerless over our addiction and our life had become unmanageable. So until I admitted that to myself, no steps that I supposedly was taking to recover ever worked.
It's good. It's
And
good.
number one was, when I first started going to NA, that one really turned me off. And I didn't like that one. Over time though, I began to have a better understanding, I feel, of it and agreed with it.
So why do you think it turned you off? What about step one turned you off?
It's because it's what do you mean I'm powerless? I mean, I made the choice to get in and do it, I can make the choice to stop doing it. And so it was like, you know, wimped me out. And I just had to like submit, which, I mean, arguably that's being similar, but I mean, but yeah, that was it. I was powerless over it, you know.
Just thought I'd ask.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Now we're going into
The scripture.
the scripture.
Deuteronomy 30:15-20 says, God spoke through Moses, saying, now listen.
Right. That's a striking statement to me anyway, where he says, now listen. Now listen.
Open your ears.
Listen.
I missed that part then. Would you read that to me?
God spoke through Moses, saying, now listen.
Wow.
Okay.
Now, right now,
Listen.
listen.
Okay.
Today I am giving you a choice between life.
Now remember, this is right before Moses is going to die, before they cross over and go into the promised land, and so he's wanting them to listen. Okay. Now, do I know if Moses knows that he's not going to be there? I don't know for sure. Okay, I don't know. Maybe he already does know. I don't know that. Okay, I didn't dig that deep. All right, but that's what's going on here. Okay, go ahead.
I'm gonna read it all over again.
Yeah, go all the way back to listen.
Now listen. Today I'm giving you a choice between life and death, between prosperity and disaster. For I command you this day to love the Lord your God and keep his commandments.
What is that? What? So is there anything wrong with being directed to love the Lord thy God? Is there anything wrong with that?
I think it has positive consequences.
Garth,
They're good.
you're scrunched up on me.
Yeah, if I'm understanding correctly, it's kind of like well, all right, kind of scary to say, but you know, if you tell me I gotta love you, then maybe there's something there, it's gonna be hard to love. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you have to not love yourself, far as that the unhealthy parts of yourself that you have held on to. You know, you have to surrender to that. Now, just remember, he says, "Now listen, you can choose life or death." Okay, you can choose prosperity or disaster. All right, we got that. But the way to choose life and prosperity is love God. I wonder what happens if we don't love God.
We go back to our addiction in our own ways.
We don't get as much of his blessings as we would have if we loved him when we don't.
We resist his blessing, I'd like to say. We get what we want, which is death and disaster, okay? Do we really want that? Well, that's what I picked. Man, I have to get a better picker.
You know, I was in a deep, it was a really intense moment, stuff like that, and I was talking with this guy and I was wanting to help, and I said, I just wish I knew who was it, I just wish I knew who, and I said, I wish I knew who, and I looked in his eyes and I swear I saw the devil. And he said, are you sure? No? And just this ominous voice. And so that kind of came to mind, like, you know, there's a choice, are you sure? That was an interesting moment.
Yes, it would
Because I almost
be.
felt, I started backing up there. No. Yeah, it's kind of an interesting one.
That sounds like a healthy choice. Okay, good deal. I'm sorry I interrupt you on that, but I just felt like it was important to
Yeah.
bear down on that, and I hope that was okay with
you
everybody.
Did well. For I command you this day, love the Lord your God, and keep his commands, decrees, and regulations by walking in his ways. If you do this, you will live, and the Lord your God will bless you. But if your heart turns away and you refuse to listen, then I warn you now that you will certainly be destroyed. Today, I have given you the choice between life and death, between blessings and curses. Now I call on heaven and earth to witness the choice you make. Oh, that you would choose life so that you and your descendants might live. You can make this choice by loving the Lord your God, obeying him, and committing yourself firmly to him. This is the key to your life.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and ask the question and then we'll talk about it. But what do you think what does this mean to you?
Well, that I have a path to choose to go down. I can go to the left or to the right.
Okay.
Or I can
So what do you,
stay with the Lord and love him and see what he has for my life.
anybody else what does this mean to you? Anybody comment? Okay, so what do you think it means here about so that you and your descendants might live? How's that work out?
Well, because like with my father, I seen that he did drugs, and as I got older, I thought that was cool, and that was the route to go down in life, you know. So I modeled my life after him, even though it was the wrong path.
Okay, so some of it is, the environment that we've been in, raised in, so we
have comfort.
Yeah, we know it. Some of those doors get opened up for us, and we step into them.
Yes.
Okay, and that affects our life and our children's lives, right?
I agree.
So, now this is a delicate question. Are you up to a delicate question?
Well, I can always pass.
Yeah, you can.
All right.
So do you, would you agree that that your change of your life pattern and working on being sober, like you said earlier, and choosing life, because I believe you are choosing life.
Thank you.
So do you think that has an effect on your descendants?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, I do.
right.
Even though they're not physically there in my life, that I believe that it does have brings
Well,
change.
We, doing this for over 20 years in particular and other ministry, I see it all the time. That when people dedicate their lives to recovery and turning their life around, that it's a ripple effect. And because when we change, it affects everything around us. When we choose to live with death, that affects everything around us, right? So we may not be able to see or measure the effect, but oftentimes it's easier to do it in the negative than in the positive, until all of a sudden the positive jumps up and hits you and things start coming together. And so that happens. I just thought I'd take a risk and ask you that question. I hope you don't
Thank
mind.
you. No, that was okay. Thank you.
So, the next thing I wanted to say here, the last line of that scripture, would you read that last line?
This is the key to your life.
Okay, what do you think that means?
Well, it's the key. It helps open the door to that, to God's love and God's will in your life.
Okay, and so what are the keys here?
That you'll choose life so that your descendants might live, and you make a choice to love your God and obeying Him and committing yourself firmly to Him. What was the question again?
Well, read.
I thought it was right there.
Back
I thought
up.
the
Well,
answer-
it's the sentence right before. This is the key to your life. That's the answer right there.
Obeying Him and committing yourself firmly to Him.
You can make this decision by loving the Lord your God and obeying Him.
And committing yourself firmly to Him.
Okay,
This is the key to your life.
right?
Oh, okay. So that when you do that, then you open yourself up to His will in your life
Right. Very
instead
good.
of your own will.
Yes.
And his blessings.
And
His
His blessings.
blessings.
Yeah, absolutely. And you walk into a covering instead of being totally exposed to the curse. Right?
I like that.
Okay. Now, one other thing I want to say about that scripture, if you look in the NIV, it has asterisks beside the word this, and it goes down. If you look at it, it says that you can replace that this with a he. So read that statement with a he.
He is the key to your life.
What do you think about that?
Means a lot to me. Means that, He can help me out of the things that I'm stuck in, the ways of my life that I feel like I'm very committed to that aren't of Him. He can help me out of those things.
Good deal. A scripture that's referenced in the Life Recovery Bible and some of the information down below, on this scripture, it goes back to John 14:6 out of the NLT. It says, Jesus told him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. That's John 14:6, and I read it out of the NLT. And that's what our Life Recovery Bible is, NLT. So I wanted to share that. Okay, you may go forward.
Although we may feel out of control with respect to our addictions, we can choose to set our heart in the direction of life.
Go ahead.
We can choose to love God and begin to follow His program.
Good.
I like where it says here, it says we can choose to love God and begin to follow His program. Like, we can start.
Yes, and so this may be a little tricky question, but I got down here, question mark, what program are we talking about here?
Well, the program of His free will to follow His ways, to be having His will and His blessings in our life. maybe.
Yeah, that, you know,
Tricky
It's-
question.
well, it could be, it can be the 12-step program, which is
Yeah.
based on the truths of the Bible.
Yes.
Or we can go back and read that sentence again that I asked you what, the program may be the keys of your life. And the keys of your life was that one sentence that I asked you to read a while ago?
You can make this choice by loving the Lord your God, obeying Him, and committing yourself firmly to Him.
Would you agree with all that?
Walking in His ways, yes.
Does that clear anything up, Robert?
I think the program is, as we face the decisions of life, if we think about, well, is this gonna align me with God? Or is this gonna, if I make this decision, will it move me farther away from God? I think to me, that's what the program is. We want to let God be in our life and in control of our life, so we have to consider whether the decisions we're making are aligning with God.
Which, another way of saying it, which I don't disagree with anything you said there, is the logos, which is the word, which is truth. And that's the reason why I say always to look at your thoughts and your beliefs and are they aligned with truth or are they a lie? And if you have enough internal knowledge and understanding, wisdom to know which is a lie and which one's the truth, you've got a way out of this cesspool, right?
Yeah.
But it takes a choice, right? Choose life, choose the truth, choose faith, choose the program. So what did you get out of this lesson?
That to go with God, and love God because His will is better than my will.
Your takeaway?
Choose life with God,
Yeah.
opposing to my own stinking thinking and my own ways, and
So you glad you did this one?
yeah. I chose it, so throughout the week I was like, why did I choose this one? Yeah, but it's always the ones that I say, why did I choose this one? The ones that work out better and helping me along the way,
Willie was asking me this week, is it all right if I tell this? Willie was asking me, he said, I'm trying to pick the lesson that I'm going to teach, and I'm down to 2 different ones, and I just wondered what you think. And I says, well, pick out the one that's most meaningful to you. And he said, well, and he read them. I said, and so he said, what do you think? And I said, well, I think you ought to pick the one that's most meaningful, one that you really, you really need. He said, okay, I got it.
Well, when I read through all of them before I chose this one, and I picked the one that had the most pressing questions, and then I thought later, I was like, why did I do that? And then now I know why, because it helps me.
Yeah.
That's good. Thank you, Tommy. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
Big Will.
Well,
It's not something I'm calling a lot, big,
You're big in my eyes.
Okay, so. We do these bracelets real quick.
Sure.
We got the paper down here.
Notes on the. Should be up there.
Hello, how is everyone?
wonderful.
Can you hear me?
No,
'Cause I can hear me very well. Okay, here at Saturday Night Live, we like to acknowledge clean time with colorful bracelets. This clean time isn't just for drugs and alcohol, but for whatever keeps you in bondage. Drugs, alcohol, anger, gambling, food addiction, lying, cheating, stealing, pornography, sex addiction, cutting, you fill in the blanks. We have a white bracelets just for today or less than 30 days. Would anybody like one? Orange for 30, green for 60, maroon for 90, yellow for 9 months, I'm just kidding, blue for 6 months. You want to step up and get it? You get it for Willie. Congratulations.
What color?
It would be blue.
Somebody needs to pay attention to that. Congratulations.
We have yellow for 9 months, glow in the dark for a year, gray for 18 months, black for 2 or more years, silver for 5, gold for 10 or more years. Once again, does anybody need a white bracelet starting a new way of life?
Put it on there. Thanks.
You got 2 of them up here.
You did?
Yeah.
Well, give me one of them then. Because I used to have one on here and
It's all kind of weird. Sometimes I say stuff I don't know nothing about, like I kept saying pride. So I looked up pride. Before I start, I want to start with that. And the definition of pride that I got from Google, which is probably wrong, is a feeling of deep pleasure or satisfaction derived from one's own achievements. The achievements of those with whom one is closely associated, or from qualities or possessions that are widely admired. Which, that's fine. But then it's got a second one down here that says consciousness. Consciousness is of one's own dignity. He's followed his pride and asked for help. And when I read that, I thought to myself that maybe pride is a lack of consciousness. When I don't really pay attention to the conscious surroundings around me.
that's really good.
I just thought it was kind of weird to put them together like that. So I'm gonna answer these questions, and pride is a big thing for me, because I mean, you got 2 things in my opinion that stops us from making that choice. I think that's the first question, so I'll just go ahead and read it.
Scripture that pride goes before the fall would line up with that, with your statement there about not being conscious.
Right. And so the first question is, what is it about my understanding of God that blocks me from deciding to turn my life and my will over to His care? Well, my understanding of God is flawed from the very beginning, because my understanding of God usually comes from somebody up on a pulpit that's telling me, until I get into the Word and I start to see for myself. So, when I was younger, I heard a lot of fire and brimstone preaching, and I don't hear a lot of that anymore. What I heard wasn't necessarily wrong, but it may not have been the whole story, if that makes any sense. So when I say it was flawed, I'm not saying it was wrong, I'm just saying it wasn't until I decided to do something. I think being a Christian is a verb, it's an action word. We have to do something to be a Christian other than just sit there and listen. So my understanding was flawed of what it took to be a Christian, because I desired to go to heaven because of the fear I had of the consequences of not going to heaven. It wasn't because I loved God. And it was later in life when people started talking more about the love of Christ and less about the fire and brimstone. And that's not my place to tell anybody what one works for you, but I'll say this, that when I stopped having the fear of going to hell and started loving life with Christ, it changed my life. It's really hard for me to sit up here and tell you what God's done for me without feeling like I got some of this pride that's coming in me, because my life has changed so much, but yet it's our experience, strength, and hope that helps the next guy that comes in. So I came in with nothing, and today I got a choice of jobs. I had somebody call me this week, and that I've been trying to get this job from, and it pays twice as much as the job I'm working now, and I've been debating it really hard because, you know, I prayed about it, and I for the first time in my life, I thought about the long picture. So everything I said today is just what I've been going through, you know, because it's not about what's here right now, because money sounds really good. But money's the root of all evil, then maybe I'm jumping into something that I shouldn't. But I've also said while I was up here that that God has taken these character defects and turned them into assets. And I can see them very clearly at times, and other times all I can see is the defect of the character. So I got to keep myself focused, and if I don't stay in the Word, then it's real easy for me to lose my focus on what is really important. So I don't know. I decided I didn't want the job that paid so much because I didn't want the temptation. I didn't want this. I didn't want that. And the truth of the matter is what I really was is I was fearful that that's not what God wanted, and I was fearful that I was going to make the wrong decisions. And it's funny that we went with free will because, you know, I've made good money before. I've always went out and thought that I could afford to get high, or it's okay to go for shooting in a pool or whatever, because I got bored. I had the choice was mine because I had the ability to do it. And in the end, what I seen was I always started out with the same thing all over again. So when I prayed about it, what I seen was that I'm not the same person I was then. It's real easy for me to see growth in certain areas. But what I do with my money today and what I do with my money then is two different things. I'm not going to say what I spend my money on because I don't think that that's all relevant here. I'll say this though, I spend my money on positive things instead of negative things, and I could probably do better. But there was a time when I first started this walk with Christ that I thought, and I've said this up here too, but I just touched on it, that I thought that morals would get me to where I wanted to be, which was, you know, my ultimate goal was never really heaven. It was to stay out of hell. We got to understand where I'm at here. So as long as I wasn't as bad as the guy that's next to me or whatever, and then you get Facebook, Instagram, all this social media stuff, and now you got news coverages from everywhere, and you got people that shooting up schools. It's real easy for me to see someone that's worse than I am right now. So if my goal is just to be better than the next guy, I can get a lot of pride for doing the wrong thing. So I have to, myself, get into the Word and see what it is that God wants out of my life. Now, once I do that, I have to take action toward that. Because I don't think it's God's will for me to live in a homeless shelter to tell others about God. I don't think that God is ever going to have me do something negative in my own life to make it a positive for someone else. I think He chose us all to be warriors. I've said that in here too. When we change our lives from where we were and allow God to work in our lives where He can lift us up to where we can lead others, that is the will of God. Because then that train keeps going. It's not something that I can feel really good about myself about telling somebody about how I feel and what God's done for me. And once again, that pride likes to sneak up, and it's really hard for me to determine the difference between me being boastful about what I've done and what God's done for me. So I've got myself doing it a lot. I'm not gonna lie, I'm far from where I need to be. But these choices I make in my life today are going to be different than what I'm going to make in 6 months, hopefully. Because if I'm making the same choice in 6 months that I'm making today, that means I didn't grow any at all.
That's right. That's good.
When I got clean, my biggest obstacle between me and God was drugs and alcohol. Okay, so I thought, it was not easy, okay, Garth? Just so you know, it was very painful. Every step of this was painful.
Did you get that?
No, I sure did.
But
Because that was growth, and that growth is painful.
Right.
Just we may be right here, but I may be wrong.
But once I accomplished what I thought I could never accomplish, which was just the beginning of the travel, I could see the reward stronger than I could see the struggle once I was in the reward. So it was real easy to overlook what I had overcome, but I could never forget how hard it was to get to that point. And then it became my language, which when I was a kid, it was referred to as cursing. And we talked about curses today, right? So I think very strongly that the way I communicate with others is gonna either send a curse to them or a blessing to them. So
Yes.
I have to be very careful with the way I word things, and I'm not real good at it yet, but I'm still struggling. I mean, it is what it is, but I'm a lot better than what I used to be. You
Congratulations.
do not hear me curse as far as a vulgar language, which was always told me what cursing was. But when he said something about, Doug said something about, if you talk down on somebody, well, that's a curse. So if I am around a group of people, and I'm not gonna mention the people I work with, just in case they're watching, and we make fun of somebody else that's working there, whether they know it or not, yes, I just did something I probably ought not have done, not probably, I shouldn't have done. But it's really easy for me not to take accountability for that, as long as everybody else is in agreement with it, and they never know. Okay, well, that wasn't supposed to be funny, but it's true, and I do it all the time. But I do it to people in front of their face too, because I'm a nice guy. But I do it in a sense of, I try to have a sense of humor while doing it. It's not like I'm trying to actually just run them in the ground. It's all about being funny, but the truth is, I mean, I'm supposed to be a representation of Jesus Christ, and if I'm doing that, whether I'm funny or not, is that really the best example I can give to the next guy that may need my help next week? Because I'm a living, walking example of what Christ can do for somebody in everybody's life.
That's absolutely true. But the rest of that story is, if we send out any type of curse, according to Proverbs, cursing someone is like throwing a boomerang out and it hitting you in the head.
That is true.
So it comes back to you, whether they find out about it or not.
Well, it's kind of,
But you're getting better, so that's
it's weird
congratulations.
because I pray about it a lot because I do recognize it.
Good,
But I'm still getting blessed in a way that I've never been blessed before.
awesome.
And it's not with the material things. I mean, I've got material things, it's good, but that's not what's impressive. What's impressive to me is this sense of, I can't say accomplishment, but it is. It's a sense of accomplishment, but it's that peace with myself. I don't have to have a validation for somebody else, and I don't have to go out and do things to show people that I'm worthy of being in their company. Today I'm comfortable with being me. And if you don't like who I am, there's other people out there you can hang out with.
Yeah,
But I have to represent what I really believe in, and if I'm not doing that, if I'm not true to what I say, then that makes me a liar and a sinner already, doesn't it?
yeah. And you're not in alignment with what you know is God's truth for you.
Right, so, Doug asked, so when you get up in the morning, are you doing what aligns with your spirit? Well, I'd like to say I do, but really I get on Facebook or get on TikTok and I check my messages and then I'll get into my word before I leave the house. Sometimes I might even shower first. That was a joke. Nobody thought I'm scared now. There's nobody else do that though. It's true though. I mean, it's really easy for me to be distracted by the little things in life, especially if they're entertaining. And I'll be honest, I haven't really watched my television in like a week. I might put an hour in because I got this new phone and this new phone company and my TV won't hook up to the internet. So now I gotta, if I'm gonna watch the news, it's gonna be something I completely disagree with. And it's really harder for me not to throw that friggin' remote into the TV than just relax. So why can't I apply that with everything else in my life? If I'm doing something that I feel that is gonna upset me or disrupt my peace within myself,
Yes.
why do I continue to do that?
Yeah, that's a good question.
But I do. I mean, I go to work every day. Another joke, just so you guys know. Tough crowd today. Laughing at all I'm doing and don't want to do. Anyway,
We gotta be careful, you know?
yes, so it's true though, when I take the time to have a conscious decision instead of just going by what I think others want me to do, which is the difference between pride and consciousness, then I generally make a much better choice. And if I can take the time to include God into that, then it's probably always going to be the right choice if I take the time to listen. Now, I can ask God, He'd give me the answer, and turn my head like I didn't see Him, you know, but that's that free will that we're speaking of, you know. And when I got clean, they told me that I had to take accountability and responsibility for the things I do. And I had to go back and how they put it, yeah, make amends for some of the things I'd done in my past that even though I wasn't really all that consciously aware of how it was affecting other people, I still affected other people. So if I gotta do that for them, how much more should I have to do for myself today? Anyway, I don't want to get into something I don't know about, but I do know this, that peace and serenity that I have today is something that you can't buy with any amount of money, and I generally have the most of it when I am sitting at home, which is where I used to be the most uncomfortable, is when I was alone. Because when I was alone, all I had was my own thoughts. So what's the difference? I'm going to take a wild stab at this, that the difference is that what's in my head is not the same as what was in my head then. Since I take some time to read in the Word, I've got some positive to combat all this negative that I've always thought of and I've always seen the world as. So my vision has changed. And there's some real peace in knowing that God's got this and I don't have to. When I was in my addiction, the last thing I wanted to do was admit I was powerless. My life was unmanageable. No, I got this. No matter where, I was homeless and didn't have a change of clothes and nobody really wanted to be around me. I knew this because nobody came to me. I always had to go to them. And then when I got there, they didn't act too happy to see me. Always saying stupid stuff like, "You want to take a shower?" No, I'm just kidding. But it's true. And today, I feel at peace just knowing that no matter what happens, God's got this. And when I did that interview for this job that is going to pay twice as much and whatnot, I didn't even want to. I didn't want to bring up God. I didn't want to bring up my addiction or anything of that nature because I wanted them to see who I was. And somehow it slipped out, you know, because when you start living this, things slip out. And then you start to see in other people the way that this is so beneficial for everybody, not just drug addicts and alcoholics. I think everybody could take, if nothing else, that 11th step on a daily basis and improve their lives. But some of the things we say in here are so impressive to other people. Like, I just told him, so look, I really would love to have this job, but if I don't, it's not going to break my heart. I've been down to nothing before, and I've been able to come up from that so many times, and this time, I'm not quitting this job to where I might have a chance at this job. If you call me, that's great, and if you don't, well, I still have what I need. And he said, for the first time, this is the first time I've ever heard anybody tell me this, by the way, "We could use some of that kind of maturity around here." Like, what? Are you sure? Because I grew with coming to this meeting, and that's why they call it life recovery. Because getting clean was easy for me, because I already knew that's not what I wanted in my life. And when I made that decision that I was willing to do whatever it took to stay clean, then it was easy. Getting to the point to where making that decision was hard. So looking back, it was really easy for me to tell myself that there was really no struggle in quitting and this and that, when really, even to this day,
it's not that there's not a struggle, it's just a whole lot easier for me to say no. I still have the urge to smoke a cigarette and whatnot. But it's a fleeting thought. It does not last any time at all, because I think about what I'm thinking about, because that's what this program taught me, not to just let my mind wander off, because if it's wandering off out here and I catch it way over here, it's gonna take a whole lot longer to get it back to center than if I catch it right here.
Right.
So, I'm gonna take the rest of this hour up if I don't shut up. But that's how I feel about this. This to me, I mean, it was only 2 questions and I thought, oh, this will be easy. But really, when you think about the last sentence that he said in that verse, or maybe it wasn't the last sentence, but somewhere in there he said something about, well, it's a they give us free will, and it's a blessing and a responsibility. And I never really looked at free will as a responsibility. Always thought it's just a choice, but I think it's very important that we word things the proper way so we can see things the way they have to be seen. Because if it's just a choice, there's no consequence behind it. But when it's a responsibility, it's something that others around me are going to be affected by. That's what their responsibility part is. It's not to me, because when I was using it, I could care less about me or you or anybody else, because all I could see was right here. Couldn't see the forest for the tree right in front of me. I think it's the way they put it in NA. So, how does fear affect my choices? I'd like to say fear and pride both affect all my choices, because as long as I can humble myself to admit that even if I have the answer, you gotta understand, even if I know the answer, I have to admit to myself that God's got a better way. He's got the right way, because I think that you have 2 wrongs and you have 2 rights. We can pick the worst of between 2 bads, or the best between 2 bads, and still make a bad choice. We can pick the worst of 2 right choices and still not make the choice that would have benefited us the most. How's that? And I didn't really study a whole lot on this, because I took one look at it and I was like, oh, that's easy. And as I'm sitting in here, and I did read over it, don't get it wrong, but I didn't put a whole lot of time into it, because I feel that the one thing I know is that the reason we all can go to Christ is because of free will. The reason I could live in my addiction was because of free will. And then when he's reading it, it just all come together and made all this sense about how it is a responsibility for us to make the right choices. I don't know where I got all that from, because I really didn't have nothing planned at all. But I think the 2 things that keep me from accepting God would be pride and fear. And I think that one day we have to come to the realization that we're going to believe in something we can't see. It's either going to be fear or it's going to be faith.
Yeah.
And my fear will overwhelm me with the thought of the possibility of what might happen. And my faith can I can become overjoyed and happy in any situation through the faith that I know that God's got my back. He's got me. There's nothing that can happen that God can't handle.
So, what did you learn from this?
Nothing. No. I learned that I don't know everything. That see, when I said I quit using drugs. Let me finish that real quick, because that was a very big point. I quit using drugs, and I looked back, and everything seemed to be all right. And then I noticed that the cursing, so I started doing that. And then the next thing I know, there was smoking, and there was women. There's all these little things, and every time I had something I had to overcome, it looked like the only thing standing between me and God. The funny thing is every time I got to the point where, I don't like to use the word I overcame, but every time I got to the point where it wasn't as big of an issue, there was always something else there. However, It's getting a whole lot easier today than it was then, because if I didn't go through the addiction, and I didn't go through the smoking and the cursing and whatever else may be in this little step ladder, I wouldn't have the faith today to know that He's got me. I mean, everything that I overcame seemed like it was bigger than I was, that I had no. I remember when I decided to quit smoking, I was so fearful that I started vaping, because I was scared that if I didn't, that I was going to fail. And the fear of failure was probably the one thing that stood in my way from wanting to accomplish anything positive in my life. So it was only through the adversity that I got the faith to step out and be where I'm at right now. I'm in front of the camera, I don't know who's seeing me, I don't really care, because it's not about me, it's about God. And if God can do what He's done for me in my life, I'm willing to do whatever I can to serve Him. And yeah, so if I'm doing something wrong, I'm not mad when somebody points it out. I might get angry, but I'm not mad. Might be disappointed, I'm not mad, but I can recognize these feelings and separate the differences today. But when I got clean, everything, I was either mad or happy. There was no in between. And today, I can recognize there's other emotions in life. And
It's good.
I can't tell you what love feels like, because I ain't felt it yet. No, I'm just kidding. My dog loves me to death. She's always happy.
So what's your takeaway?
My takeaway is when I don't, God does. How's that? There is no sense in being fearful of what I can't do when I know God can. And if you don't believe it, just try it. Prove me wrong. Anything else?
That's it, buddy. Thanks, Will. It was good. You open yourself up and share yourself, and that's important. Next week, it will be on single-mindedness, right? And that's single-minded devotion. And Willie's going to be doing that, and Robert's going to be.
No, I gotta ask Robert yet, I ain't asking yet.
Robert's going to be asking me the questions.
I didn't get a chance to talk to him when he come in, he come in late.
To talk to you, Robert.
I'll do it, yeah.
Okay.
You don't want to.
And I wanted to conclude by this. I appreciate everybody's input, and Tommy opening up and sharing, and Will and all of you. I appreciate that. I talked to several people this week, and we were talking about difficult situations, and I thought of it when Will was talking, that I was talking to this one person, I said, because they had a situation where they were presented with their drug of choice, and they said no, but it affected them. They were dysregulated emotionally, and so we were talking, and I told them how they made the right choice, and I drew this picture kind of for her verbally, because we were on the phone. I said, all the work that you've done to have restoration in your life, your recovery, you're sober, you got a job, your family is starting to be restored, things are good, you're able to see your grandchildren, you've worked so hard, you put in a lot of time and work, and we know what I'm talking about, right? Mm-hmm. But one bad choice can take a lot of that away, very possibly. Not that you couldn't, repent and work on reestablishing that, but our hard work can be destroyed, and that's what we're talking about here today, about the freedom to choose. And so we just need to be careful about our choices, right? And because, you know, I've been, and I told this person, I've been faced throughout my life arc of people and you know, they, you know, I made a choice. That is not as valuable as my life, my family, my job, my reputation. That's not worth it. You know what I'm talking about. And when I stack up my values of my life against that or those things, it's not worth it. Is it? You have to decide, you know, right? You have to decide, right? So, you want to say something, Will? You look like you had a reaction there, so. All right, well, any comments or questions? May the Lord bless you and keep you, and may His face shine upon you and give you His peace.